Welcome to the Therapist Burnout Podcast, episode 110. Hey, therapist, welcome back. I am coming to you, not live, I'm coming to you before I take a break. So, in 3 years, I haven't taken a break from this podcast, and I am taking a break. I have been on hiatus, though. I keep meaning to do an episode for you. And actually, I'm put at the time of this recording, I'm putting out an episode with Dr. Kevin Coakley. So if you didn't hear that, he is an expert in impostering. And I was just like, I would love to have him on my podcast to share his expertise in this area. And so I just messaged him on LinkedIn and he was like, yes, I will do that. And I was like, really? Okay, let's do it. So I found that conversation really interesting. We also talked about like racialized stress and racialized experiences. That is also in his research areas in Black psychology. So that was very informative. So please have a listen to that. Today, though, we are talking about relearning rest because we don't need to squeeze out summer. That is my thesis for this episode. I think we think of a time in the future where there's not going to be as much stress, when we'll be able to handle it better. Maybe that's when you close your practice. Maybe that's when you leave therapy work. Maybe that's when you launch your practice. Maybe that's when you're done with your training. So we have this mental issue with projecting into time and believing there is a time where we'll have lower stress. And some of that I somewhat believe. So I think if you look at data for people who are older, they are less stressed. So I think there's certainly times in life when we have less stress. Younger people have actually more stress, which I would think if I was young again, I could just not have stress. They have a lot of stress, interestingly enough. But I think for summer, the summer's problem is in our minds, we believe it should be a time of less stress, of a time of more relaxation where we get to experience a time that's more playful. We also curate like wonderful experiences of vacations in our mind that sometimes are relaxing and sometimes they're just not. Sometimes they're not. And I think we spend so much time imagining future versions of rest that we don't rest or that we put off rest. Like I will get to rest when I get to the end of the school year. Like for me, who now works as a school psychologist, I have been overworking, y'all. I have been overworking this school year. My brother, even the salesman, my brother, thank God for him, even reflected because I had him read Oliver Berkman and he was mad at me. He was like, why did you have me read that book? I don't even know how to think about it. And so I've talked about his book, 4,000 Weeks, and I can't remember the subtitle of that book, but it's essentially how to not feel as much time pressure. So he was a productivity author and then started talking like anti-productivity author, how it really doesn't make any sense and how a lot of the ways we push ourselves really don't make a lot of sense. And I think it was a big paradigm shift for me to read that book. It doesn't mean I don't have goals, although early in like, not early in 2025, no, maybe mid last year, I had a zap of ambition to do anything. I just don't wanna. And I've been talking about this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to strive anymore. And so when striving is gone, what do I want then? And I think this thing about summer is that when I don't put off rest anymore, or I don't believe that I have to have the perfect sabbatical, which in my mind I thought I had to have for up until just recently, that summer has to be this protected time where nothing happens except fun and rest. And that's just not life. It's just not possible. I teach and I believe deeply that rest has to be incorporated into the lives we live now. However, modern life really pushes us into overworking. If we're not careful, it will just continue to eat our time. And I think thinking about what we actually need is important. So I think just to put a leisure like in the mind frame, I've read some research that indicates that we have more leisure time than in history. So we actually have more time. That is shocking to me. So when I heard that statistic, I was like, that can't be possible that we have more time because everyone I talk to has no time. So I have gone, I don't know where I heard someone say, life is full. I'm not busy, life is full. Because many of the choices that I made last year in my full life, I made, right? And I made choices in my work life for next year that will hopefully structurally change some of that. Well, I will be less full. And I'm trying to strategically every year look at my work life and say, how can I incrementally change my working so that I can rest more? And that's the advice I give to people. Huge changes in your work life or in your personal life are not possible. You know this, therapist. This is the stuff you preach to your clients all the time. You tell them like, okay, let's just try one thing this week. Let's try a couple of things this week because we know if we tell them to revamp the whole life, they will leave and not come back to therapy and tell us that was horrible advice. Why did you tell me to do that? So I think what we really need, and research supports this, that there's a real sweet spot in our leisure even. So around 2 to 5 discretionary hours a day is what feels good and for well-being, for having leisure. And having too much of that is linked to not being well. Too little with not having enough is linked to not being well. And during the school year, there were times where I didn't have 2 hours a day to myself. I was lucky if I got my kids to bed and I was still awake an hour after they went to bed as well, because I have one child who wakes up at 5:30 and one who stays up till about 10:30. Even though I try to get him to bed early, he is a night owl. So that is partly my life right now. And still, it feels like it's a crunch, right? I think we're looking for rhythm. And in summer, we shouldn't squeeze it all out either. We shouldn't squeeze out every experience that we could ever have in summer, having a bucket list like, I have to go to all these places. No, that is not the task of summer. The task of summer is really to think about, okay, let's think about this season. What rest do I need? What play do I need? What leisure? What family time do I need? And really think about like, okay, can I structure a rough sketch of what that can look like for me for this season? So my school year in review, I wanted to do this as an exercise for you as well. I took on too much. And I felt that when I took both of these contracts on. One was 4 hours that on paper looked like I could manage that. However, what wasn't on paper was the acuity that I would face in that particular contract, the difficulty with traveling to that particular location, which was like tearing up my car suspension. Like it was not good. And I have a new car. So I worry about it. I don't want it to get torn up on the road. And I felt this acutely in about November, December, where I had the thought, maybe I should end this contract. And if I had done that, if I had listened to that little voice that was like, I don't think we can do this, I don't think I would have been where I am now. I didn't get to burnout. I didn't deal with a depressive spell, which I've talked openly about on this podcast, by the way, because last spring I thought I was burnt out again, but I was just depressed. Not just depressed. I was depressed and got some support for that. And that was good. And I haven't struggled with that since. And part of that is also, I think, dealing with the circumstances of my life, that I chose a degree in psychology. I have a doctorate in psychology. I'm not going back to school. So that's one thing. I don't think I'm going to do a career change right now with the ages of my kids, those types of things. Not going to do it. If something falls into my lap, we'll talk about it then. But I'm not going to do that. But if I listen to that little voice, maybe in December, could I have made a change and stopped mid-year? Maybe. Maybe I could have. And I will definitely keep that data going forward, that I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do. And this year, going into next school year, I'm going to be working full time at a school. And there's a lot that's coming up for me around working full time. After not working full time, I'm looking at my calendar, like when was the last time I worked full time? Was 2013. So 13 years ago was the last time I was an employee. And so, wow, that's in my mind space. There's all kinds of drama that's starting to happen. Like, what if you can't do this? What if it's too much work? What if you really hate it? So many things are coming up for me. And the reason why I made this decision is because I feel a fatigue of being self-employed. That is one thing. I also came to the conclusion that I do like working in a team-based environment. And I feel like it really suits my personality in schools. I think part of what was keeping me not making this move sooner, I've been working contract for a school for 4 years, and I closed my practice in 2023. If you're new to this podcast, hello, I'm talking a lot about my choices today. So, but I think it's relevant because I talk with therapists all the time about what they're going through and what they're thinking about with their changes and how it seems like they can't make a change. And I think the thing I'm telling myself is that I know I can change things now. So if I get to the end of the school year, I think I will really take stock. What was working, what wasn't working. And that I really have to push back on my own tendency to say yes, to people please, to want to just fill in the gap and do the job because I can do it. When sometimes I don't realize my own capacity, I struggle with some time blindness, and I get over my head very quickly. And that's just me historically. That's my brain. I will just take things on. And I think that's true for a lot of therapists. They, will take a client back. Sure, I will take you back, even though they may not have that capacity emotionally, physically. Like they might even have a slot. So you're like recreating the wheel with making a slot for this client when you don't have the slot to do. I would have people who listen to the podcast think about experiments. This is an experiment I'm making. This isn't I'm fine. This is where I'm arriving. I'm going to stay in this full-time position. That is my hope. That is because I made this choice. Like I'm wanting to do this, but it is also probationary for me too. So interestingly enough, about working for the school, they put me in a 2-year probationary period until I get a continuing contract. And that is a good heuristic to think about. Like, can I work 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and make a decision about, do I like this? And really look at, does this job, does this role, does this thing really fit my skill set? When I first came into this work, it was a job that I could do, although sometimes not really. Sometimes I was really struggling. I remember the first days of leaving my practice and needing to lay down for half the day because I was still in burnout, still dealing with mental health stuff related to my burnout experience and my midlife awakening / crisis. Yes. Because it has been an awakening too. I will say that. So last summer, I work for a school, right? And I could have taken a break, but I didn't because I don't know. I did want to earn a little extra money, which we didn't actually use for the purpose that I wanted to. So I earned the money to paint our house, which then got eaten up by some other thing, which I'm still salty about, which that's for another time. But I thought, let's just keep pushing. I can, grind out this like $7,000 and take on these cases and let's get it done. And I didn't have the rest. I didn't allow myself to rest. I never really stopped. I had a lot less work. That was good. I did better at not overworking. I did better at not working too much, but I podcasted still weekly. I was also building a course, which I still didn't launch, which is fully built out, but I have gotten in a lot of like, do I want to do this? I don't want a drama in my mind with this podcast and that offering, which I plan to offer in the fall. So it's a better time. I almost put it out this spring, but I had too much going on, too much on my plate. So this summer, I am doing even less, where I'm not going to be doing the podcast. I may work on some things related to my course, which I already built. I almost wasn't giving myself permission to work on anything. So I am going to earmark a day or two where I work on that. Maybe. I'm going to take a few weeks and figure out, like, let my life unwind a little bit and go from there. I wanted to leave you with thinking about what rest can look to you in the summer. So right now, rest looks to me after my family vacation. So I'm heading down the turnpike to go see family. And after I get back from that, whenever that is, the time of this recording, you'll never know. But at some point during the summer, that's what I'm doing. And I really want to spend more time in my garden. So I've been wanting to like plant some trees in the back of my property. I had several beech trees in my yard that have lost their leaves, and I've had people building behind me. And so I want to like have my look out from where my kitchen is and just plant something. So that's one of my things that I'm focused on, like being in my garden. My house is gross. Like, I think at the end of the school year, I'm looking at everything. It's just gross. So that's part of things. That's not rest, but that's things I know I need to get to. But the garden is more like rest to me. It feels like. I also want to spend some time where I'm like watching movies and taking walks and doing more restful things like sleeping in as much as possible with two young boys. Hopefully, they'll sleep in more this summer and I can have some slow mornings with coffee. I think that's just so important to just have some more time to sit on my deck, listen to the birds, and just enjoy my coffee in the morning. I will really enjoy that. I've taken up pickleball a little bit this year, but I haven't got to play it as much as I want to. I still play tennis because that's just like mental health for me. But I want to play some more pickleball. So I will report back on how the pickleball went. And I am also going to take my boys to their first concert this summer in Boston. So I will let you guys know how that went. And just generally enjoy what summer brings in the state of Maine. It is beautiful this time of year. I just actually got back from a walk, so I look a little different if you're looking at the recording. It's like mid 70s, breezy, sunny, and just took my dog out for a walk in my neighborhood. And that's just wonderful. Puttering in the yard just in the morning as well, maybe like with the coffee, like looking at my plants, doing that, I think is just something that I want to do. And I feel like I've had a goal or a thought to walk in the morning. And I don't know, I really wanted to do that this year of walking with my dog in the morning, but I have two kids in two different schools. And so it's getting one kid on the bus or getting one kid to school, then getting another kid on the bus. And it's probably just hard in my season of life to do everything and to also get my dog walked in the morning, which I feel guilty for not getting her the walks that she needs. But I really want to think through how to walk my dog in the morning and how to make that a priority, even if it's just 10 minutes. So I might practice that skill of walking my dog in the morning just for a little exercise for me and also for her, of course. I'll leave you kind of thinking about this. So before I leave you, for a little bit, I have another episode that I hope to get into the podcast before I leave on vacation and for my break, and see if I can put some of my favorite episodes from this podcast in the player for summer. If I don't get to that, then I don't get to it. Then you'll hear from me in the fall, and that's fine. I've just This is where it is. We're at the end of the time where I prepared. And I was overtaxed. And so I'm just letting it be what it's going to be. And yeah, that's what it's going to be. And I think that's a part of one of the truths that I think that came out of this year was that there is always more to do. And we can continue to work forever on something, especially if you have your own business, if you have launched things, or if you do marketing, there's always more to do. There's always a post to write. There's always like a website to tweak. There is always some task that you could be doing. But at some point, you have to say, actually, this is where I'm stopping. So this is a choice I'm making to stop, to pick it back up and see what it feels like on the other side. So for you, I'd leave you with that. What is it like for you right now to stop where you are, not have it be a perfect ending, not tie a bow on something, because that's hard to do in life. And I'll leave you with this quote: all happiness depends on a leisurely breakfast. John Gunther. All right, my friends, I will talk with you. I will have some episodes here in the podcast, likely that you can listen to while I am gone, and I will see you in September.